Hello everybody, I'm glad you're here today. Today is February 14th, 2024. I'm bringing you a dream that my dad had on January 16th, 2024, so just a month ago. We've been sitting on this one, not sure what to do with it. I'm going to start right away and just bring it to you. I'm going to ask you for your help to discern it and interpret it. I have some ideas about it, but there are elements in it I'm just not sure about that. In this dream, I would say that there is an EMP overtone to it. I think there are references to satellites and even missiles. So that is what I'm bringing you today. And I believe these dreams that my dad has had are prophetic. Not all of the dreams he dreams are, and many of them I'm not even bringing to you anymore. I'm kind of just holding them for our own personal reference. But this one I needed to bring to you because it's a lot like this dream he had where they were in the barracks and the sergeant or the man in charge said 9 o'clock, lights out. So there's a reference to 9 o'clock in this also. So y'all, this dream has meaning. I think it's warning us, and I think it's telling us about future life. Now, this dream is about a good friend of ours named Joe and his wife Laverne, who are no longer living. Joe and Laverne were old and had lived through the Depression. All right, they were very poor, but they were very happy. So they had cracked the code that it doesn't take much to be happy. They were both believers in Jesus too. So let's get into this. January 16th, 2024. My dad was in a house in Seattle, but it was out in the country. But they used to live in Seattle. It was not their Seattle house, but that's what he sensed. Okay, so this house is out in the country, and it's on a hill. The house is yellow. Now, it's a very steep hill, and at the top of when I say hill, I'm saying Hill, hill. And up on the top of the hill is this house with a front porch, and this is the second time he's dreamt this house. But it was also, he was telling Joe and Laverne, who were there with him, they came to the house, and he was telling them about it was the second time he had bought it. And the first time they lived there, as he was telling Joe, there had been a pool, but it had been covered up. So he was telling Joe about the swimming pool that had been covered up. Now, evening came, and Joe said, I want to watch the stars. So the four of them, my mom, my dad, Joe, and Laverne, went out and laid on the side of the hill, and it was just a brilliant night sky. The stars were so bright, and there was one shooting star went across the sky. And they saw it, and it was just amazing. Then they saw several satellites that were crisscrossing this way and that. When you look out, you can see them at night. They look like moving stars, but they're satellites. Then in the distance, they heard a loud kaboom. And it was a fireworks show. It was the beginning of a fireworks show. And my dad said, it's 9 o'clock. They do this every night at 9 o'clock, a fireworks show. It's beautiful. And there was just, the big booming fireworks that are gorgeous. And then one last firework shot up into the air, but it didn't explode into a firework. It was like a missile. And it was coming at them, and it was burning like crazy, but it was coming right at them. And they weren't sure what to do. But then they noticed some kids, 19, 20 years old, over by the edge of this forest. And the kids were going to try to catch the rocket. And the kids said, don't touch it, it's hot. Then it was morning. the dream changed. It was morning and it was breakfast time. And Joe and Laverne and my dad walked through this massive swinging door into the dining room. And there was a table that my mother had set there. It was beautiful. She had set a beautiful table with china and candles and flowers. It was gorgeous. And there were four place settings for all four of them. And it was apparent it was going to be a 4-course meal. The light was very low, so it was like candlelight. So they sat down to eat, and my mother came in with a soup tureen, and in it was tomato soup with rye bread on the side. My dad looked at it and thought, this is weird. But Joe and Laverne just loved it, and they just ate it like crazy. My dad took one bite and pushed it away. Then Joe said, I'd like to look at your roof. So they went out onto the porch and climbed up a ladder and looked at the roof. And it was like a perfectly good roof. It was modern. It was modern like what our roofs look like today. And Joe said, do you remember how we used to make our old roofs? And my dad said, no. And Joe said, we put boards on it and then we covered it with tar paper. And my dad said, okay. And then Joe said, I'd like to look at the fields and make some holes for the seeds. So, I don't have my drink. Okay, so they went to the field, and the field was obviously drought. It was a light tan. The soil was not rich looking. It was crusted with dirt, and the sand was blowing. It was like a sandstorm. So, it hadn't been rained in a long time. And Joe said, I'd like to make holes for the seeds, and you do the same. So Joe and my dad went and got 2 metal rods, and they began punching holes into the ground, and they were just walking side by side and punching holes in the ground, and they got to the end of the row, and then Joe said, we have to drag these poles, these rods, to make a trench. And so they drug the rods on each side of the punched holes so that the ground was like furrowed, so water would go down into the seeds, although they just were the holes for the seeds. And then my dad said, look at that other field over there. It had already been plowed, like turned up just once. So the clots were really huge still. And it was still like, it was still like light tan. And so they walked to the field, and they were walking in it. My dad looked down and saw a bright, shiny copper penny. So he picked it up, and then he saw more coins with it. And he picked them up, and he said, don't ever walk by a penny and not pick it up. So they kept walking, and my dad kept finding coins, but they were not American. They were from another place. They were foreign. And my dad had a handful of them, and he told Joe you'd pick them up when he saw any, to pick them up. And so as my dad was walking, suddenly he looked down and he found this huge medallion. It was big and heavy, and he said, look at this, Joe. Is this gold? Well, Joe looked at it, and he didn't know. And then as my dad was cleaning it off and rubbing it off, the dirt, he said, look what's on it. A raised lion's face. And they noticed when they looked up, suddenly on the distance, on the horizon, there was a man just walking kind of away from them, parallel to them, but kind of walking away. And my dad said, this may be his field. But my dad kept his right hand had the coins, and his left hand had the medallion. And that was the end of the dream. Now, y'all, when I look at this dream, I think a few elements stick out. The yellow house. Y'all, yellow, I need y'all's help with this because I can't always remember what yellow means in dreams. I know that it can mean caution, because a yellow light is caution. That comes to mind, that this is a time to be cautionate, to be careful in the coming days. I mean, that's kind of how I'm putting this in the context of this is future. This is a future telling of what's going to happen. That's what it feels like to us. All right, it's a warning and a teaching. Now, Joe and Laverne were very pleasant, and they watched the stars. Now, suddenly there was a shooting star. I think that's relevant. And what's interesting is all the satellites they found, all the satellites that were in the atmosphere, in the skies. And then that's when the fireworks began, right after they noticed all the satellites. I think that's relevant. It doesn't reference that kind of war, laser war, or EMP. I think so. In my opinion, I think so. You tell me what you think. Second dream he's had where 9 o'clock at night is a trigger number. 9 in the negative can mean judgment. So I think that is what that is referencing. I think that's what that means. And there, at that time, you know, was it a fireworks show? Yes, that's what he saw. But could it represent, you know, the parallel to that, fireworks setting off, you know, or, you know, it's not, it's loud, it's unpredictable, it's fire related, you know, it can have a negative meaning, the fireworks. And I think that might be what it means, especially when that last one was what it was. And that it actually, you know, went through and people that were of the age of drafting or being drafted, in my opinion, were the ones who said, don't touch it, it's hot. So I wonder if it's just like the war's going to, the tension in the world right now is not going to be a cold war, it's going to be a hot war. I think that might be what that means. You tell me what you think. Now, it goes on, breakfast, because there were so many fours, number fours in it, I think it references the whole world. I think it references candlelight, being there's no electricity. Once again, grid down kind of situation. The rye bread is a European bread. It's popular in Germany, Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. So I think that's relevant. Now, my mom and dad won't eat rye bread. They don't buy it. All right. So that's not normal for them to have rye bread in a dream. All right. So Joe and Laverne eating it and being thankful is per Joe and Laverne. That is who they were, and that's who they learned to be based on going through a world war and depression and the Great Depression. So I think that's relevant. Now, the roof thing, I think it's like Joe is giving a tidbit of information. Hey, you're going to be covered, but remember the old ways. Remember the old ways. That's going to come in handy. I think that might be what that means. Now, when it goes to the field and planting the seeds, y'all, as believers in Jesus Christ, we plant the seed of the gospel in people's hearts. So clearly this could have a spiritual meaning to that. And that get ready, the soil is fertile, or get the soil ready, whatever. That has all kinds of implications with it spiritually based on what our Lord Jesus told us. But it also has a feeling of, y'all, they weren't farming with farm equipment. All right, this was very basic, very, I can't think of the word, but rustic way of planting, all right? Very labor intensive. And they didn't even have seeds to put in it. They were just getting the soil ready. So I found that interesting. Now, when it comes to the coins my dad found, I wonder sometimes when you find a bunch of coins in a dream, does it mean a change coming because it's change, like loose change? Or does it mean, you know, especially when the coins were from another country, I think that might indicate there's going to be countries here in our country that are not American. That there's going to be a change, and there's going to be countries here that weren't invited to come and mean us harm. That's what I think. The medallion, I don't know. Lion of Judah, I don't know. What does lion could be England? Y'all, I don't know what the lion medallion means. Y'all, I'm going to leave that with you. Please pray about it in the Holy Spirit and tell me what you think. Comment below. Encourage each other below. What are your prayer requests? Comment, just put that in below. I read them all. And all of you do. Y'all are the ones that are ministering to each other. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So tell me what you think this dream means. I do believe it's from God and divine. It has meaning. Get ready, y'all. Things are changing very quickly in the world. And I think the Lord wants us to be braced. That's all I have. Hold the line, Texas. Stay safe, America. This Gina Lima Charlie. I'm out.